anyone like to open the floor and ask the first question? Can we have a microphone?
Can we have the microphone here, please?
Yeah, and then we'll go to the back. And please, if you ask David a question, try and make it short so I can repeat it, okay?
I'm not religious, but I'm very interested in being an ethnic Quaker, a peacemaker, tolerant, discernment, and the place of religion. It seems to me we have cultism, religion, faith, and health taking the place of priest in society. Have you all worked with theologians? Do you think there may be something there about trust and virtue?
What a great question to start with. I'm going to go over to John or Margaret. Which of you would like to answer?
For sure, spiritual thoughts, religion, context, culture, ethnicity has important roles here. When we do qualitative research and interview people, lay people, patients, they have different attitudes. This is a cross-cultural issue, it's a national issue, it's an ethnic issue. So yes, and singularity, I mean, in welfare states, we see people being less and less religious. And the new religion, as described by many social scientists, is health, called healthism. So you could call that a religion. You also have orthorexia, where people use 3, 4, 5 hours per day focusing on what they eat and exercise and cannot be social active at all. So there are many new ways of finding meaning of life. One is taking health as a super value.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Margaret, did you want to add anything?
No, it's a great question, Susan. I suppose there's two things. One is about belief and one is about trust. You know, who do you believe in and then who do you trust? And they're not always the kind of same thing. And kind of what I was trying to get at with stuff about conflicts of interest is it's not just a technical problem of writing down something on a bit of paper. It's about what the moral value is of that, what the virtues are of that, and what is the underlying philosophy of medicine. You know, I'm so pleased that Iona's here because I'm sure she's going to tell us what it should be, which is great. But certainly what I want to do is try and work more with philosophers and scholars of divinity in particular as well, because I think unless we understand the cultural imperatives of the things that drive us, we can't really address them properly. And you know, and we are scientists, we should be able to test things scientifically, but we're also human, and we come with all those human foibles, the wish to believe, the wish to have hope. And I think you're absolutely right, you know, that the whole thing about longevity science, I mean, it's insane, absolutely insane. And what people are prepared to sell vulnerable people, and these are often medically qualified people. You know, sometimes the adverts in the FT weekend, if you want a laugh, all these kind of Swiss clinics promising to give you like 40 more years of wrinkle-free existence. It's just extraordinary. And many of them are doctors that are selling it, you know, and they're selling a belief, you know, and that aging is bad and that, you know, profit is good, I suppose.
Great, thank you. We've got a question at the back.
Dr. Chambers, you mentioned the publication pathway. The publication pathway. Obviously, we rely on the peer-reviewed scientific journals to give us sound, reliable information. I'm very concerned about the proliferation of predatory journals. I can envision that unscrupulous drug companies and medical device companies may be getting their unfounded information in these journals and promoting overdiagnosis. Do you have any experience with this particular issue?
Really great question. So I outside of personal experience, there's this preponderance of journals that have emerged, and it's become that much more difficult to be able to discern the potential quality and the intent of those different journals. I can't speak to specific experience having studied their influence So I do think that there is benefit in trying to understand the lineage, the conflicts of interest, the sort of business model around what seemed to be this preponderance of additional journals that may not have the same quality. I think if we check most of our spam folders, we'll see an endless stream of invitations to contribute to journals that we have very little connection with. So I think it's a really important area to track, and especially now when I think there is both a healthy skepticism around the range of different sets of information and sources of information coming out. But I can't speak to whether we have specifically looked at the influence of predatory publishing on overdiagnosis or on some of these negative consequences.
Great, thank you. One more over here.
Thanks to all of the panelists. It's been really great. Can you hear this?
Good.
Yeah. Good. I'd like to address Margaret McCartney. In journals, we get conflicts of interest declarations, but they're very anemic, and I wonder if it would be improved if it was not just whether, but also how much.
Yeah, trying to make what a declaration statement is into a meaningful vehicle for people to make judgments is one thing. But I suppose there's a whole kind of the meta view in this whole thing is that we're making an assumption that if we declare a conflict, then somehow it'll be managed and we will magically read this and then know how to discount the information that we've just read and whether it's been biased or not. I think we have to look at things in a much bigger way. Where is the evidence that we can safely manage conflicts of interest? Shouldn't there be two career pathways? One is which that you accept sponsorship, consultancy agreements, whatever, from industry, and one where you don't. And you have different career options available to you, depending on what career pathway you choose to go down. Because I don't think we have proven that we have a way to safely manage conflicts of interest. So I think we have to assume that we can't in the meantime, unless someone comes up with some, fantastic way of doing it. And therefore, we don't allow people to do certain things while they have a conflict. Now, I completely get the research issue, but there are ways of handling, pharma-sponsored or pharma-funded research. There are ways that you can try and make that safer. But I think that we have this, we're putting the burden onto readers or to patients. We're great, we're heroes, we've made our declaration, and everyone else then can decide what to do with it. So it's like a professional abdication of responsibility that you now have to do it. Now, do we have evidence that massive conflicts of interest, massive financial numbers make more of a difference than smaller ones? I'm not sure that we do have the evidence or not. Even small gifts can make big changes. I suppose one of the things that happens if you've got massive grants or massive conflicts is that your power base has changed in terms of who you employ or who you do. So your reach might be very different from a smaller one, but I think both can cause problems. So I don't know.
No magic solutions, it seems. So we've got one question here. No microphone. We'll go this one first, and then we'll get a microphone to you.
Morning, thank you. My name's Sam Finnegan. I'm a GP not too far from here in Birmingham and a researcher at Birmingham. Thank you for the talks this morning. I was wondering whether it'd be worth commenting on perhaps the cultural contradiction that plays out in consulting rooms every day, as far as I'm concerned, in that we have on one side people who, perhaps motivated by what they see on social media and driven by industry, who are made to believe that every ill that they're experiencing is due to a medical problem, a deficiency in something that we can find and fix and test on one side. But on the other side, we have the next consultation with someone who doesn't want to take a statin or an antihypertensive or a bisphosphonate or their calcium. They don't want to be patients. How do we, win the cultural war, link these two things up in people's minds and saying, well, you can't have both? And perhaps is that one of the ways that we start to turn the tide on this plague of overdiagnosis?
That's an easy question. I think the last case you mentioned, where the patient don't want to take the medicine, is evidence-based medicine, because you as a GP will provide what are the benefits, what are the harms, hopefully in a comprehensive, understandable way. and not with some relative risk reduction or whatever you are using. So I don't see any problem in your last case. I hope you are a good scientist and a GP and can provide that. The first case is a huge problem because we see an explosion of the worried well filling up our waiting rooms. Michael Bohr, professor in urology, one of my colleagues, is a keynote speaker at this conference, and he will talk about what we tried to do in Denmark about the PSA test. And here we agreed across professions that we do not recommend PSA testing among asymptomatic men and men with purely benign prostate hypertrophy as a single problem. And I think this kind of collaboration where we as scientists and across disciplines can make these solutions and refer to that. The Danish Choosing Wisely campaign has decided now to recommend against general health checks after many years of evidence showing that it's not beneficial, it's harmful. And I need this kind, I don't know what you need, I need this kind of support in the Danish context. So when they want all these kinds of tests, or what a PSA test or examinations, I need my health authorities to support me. And today, the easy access to knowledge websites is there. So I need some strong, powerful, trustful institutions in my country that can support me as a GP. So I slowly can turn the health culture around. It's going to take decades.
So Sam, thank you so much. And Sam is at the cutting edge of doing this stuff brilliantly in the consulting room and helping us all to do better. So I'm very grateful to all the work that you're doing. You know, the thing you were saying, the first thing, we've done this little study recently in St Andrews where we had little focus groups of people, and we asked them if they'd seen adverts for health tests online, and what they'd seen and what they thought about them. And we were getting loads of people saying, oh, they thought this would be great to get a health test done. And we said, well, what would you do with the result? And they said, well, I'd obviously have to go to see my GP because I need to get trustworthy advice about what to do with it. So even although we kind of feel overwhelmed with like rubbish coming into us all the time, the bottom line is we are a really trusted profession. And I kind of think we need to be more ballsy with that and sort of be out there more, sort of saying like, you know, these people are selling you stuff. You know, we don't use them as GPs because we think they're a load of nonsense, and we want to help you make better decisions. And I kind of think we've got into this shared decision-making thing, sometimes in a not very helpful way, because we're saying that, the customer prerogative is to do things, and do what you like, but we're not kind of pushing back and sort of saying, well, we should only offer rational choices to people. We shouldn't be offering people stupid things because we can make money out of them. That's just nonsense. Shared decision making is only meaningful when it's a rational decision that we are offering and taking responsibility for. So I kind of think we need to use our kind of collective professional strength and push back on this idea that customer choice is king, because it's not. It's going to kill our health services and harm patients.
Absolutely, important points. We have another question here.
Thank you. I am Carlos Martins from Portugal, and thank you all speakers for your fantastic presentations. And my questions is more for David Chambers. You talked to us about the implementation, and you mentioned, for example, X-rays, breast cancer screening, PSA, related to prostate cancer screening. I would like to have your opinion about the last United States Preventive Service Task Force recommendations regarding breast cancer screening and prostate cancer screening. Because after some years where the United States Preventive Service Task Force seemed to be more wise, suddenly during the last years, it doesn't seem like that. So how do you face, when talking about the implementation, this kind of recommendations? Thank you.
I think the broader question for me is about our guidelines are only going to be so good as the trust that comes along with their interpretation and the evidence that they're based on. And so I think there is no question that in many cases, guideline development, guideline issuance is a complex and at times a political process. And so, from my perspective, we have seen, decades of studies of why people follow guidelines and why people don't. And often those have been with an assumption that the guideline is, has been constructed in a way as to be beyond, at least a reasonable amount of doubt. If we're in a situation where there is less of that trust, then there's no question that it's going to lead to an ineffective guideline in terms of its dissemination, and and if the evidence underlying that guideline is not transparently shared, then the guideline isn't going to be particularly good. I know, at least historically with the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, what was built into that process was a refresh rate, was the recognition that the evidence was going to evolve over time. And so it was important to make sure that those groups were in a cyclical nature, going back to take a look at the recommendations and see what consequences they've had and what the evidence might suggest might be done differently. Within the National Cancer Institute, one of the really cool things that we've had for a number of years is a whole group of investigators around the country who have been modeling, based on evidence, the consequences of different parameters for guidelines. And at least over the last 10 to 15 years, those models have been offered to U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, other guideline bodies, to help in understanding the consequences of setting age parameters at different levels and who is likely to be identified and who is likely to be missed. And so I think, at least, as an optimistic note, a lot of the recognition of the nature of guidelines, how they're generated and how they're disseminated, is baked in, at least, to guideline determination. But I guess going back to this question of concerns, risks, trust, people will say that implementation and other things move at the speed of trust. I think there's no question that going forward, that guideline determination and guideline utility moves at the speed of trust as well. So I hope I heard enough to make that answer somewhat useful, but the question is a really great one.
Look, we're drawing to the end of this session. We might just ask Margaret and John just to finish with just a few reflections or anything you want people to take away or think about going forward through the rest of the meeting. Margaret, over to you, on the spot. Sorry.
Okay. Well, my big reflection is I'm so grateful to everyone for organising this conference and for being here, because sometimes it can feel really hard to be doing this stuff on your own in your consulting room. There's a big, massive healthcare system out there, and you're dealing with one patient at a time, and it's difficult and hard. And it's just, I just feel so honoured and privileged to be part of this. What has always felt like a bit of a community of like-minded people trying to do best for patients and talk about things in a rational, compassionate, and supportive way. And I hope everyone enjoys it as much as I do. So thank you.
John.
After 25 years of research in this area, I would love to come back in 10 years to Oxford and listen to a lot of intervention studies that shows that we can actually mitigate overdiagnosis. I think that's the way forward.
And we can use some of the implementation frameworks that we've heard about from David to do exactly that. So look, I think with that we should close the session. Thank you for the terrific presentations. Thank you.